Yeah, good evening, everyone. Hope I'm audible and everyone could see my screen here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Okay, so where are we, guys? I think in the last class we are done with the control structures. Now we are so clear how actually the flow of instructions can be controlled either by using the looping control structures or the case control structure or the conditional control structures, right? So any questions up to yesterday's discussions? No? Okay, good. So the next topic, what we have is, what is the next topic we are about to discuss?
Functions.
Functions.
JavaScript functions. But before that, let me go through the notes. Let us see whether are we on track or not.
Sir, I have a question actually. What's the
Go ahead,
difference
please.
between let and var?
Okay, so for this, Raj, actually we need to understand something called as scope of a variable. There is a concept of local scope, block scope, and module scope. So in order to discuss that, we need to understand what do you mean by functions. At the same time, let is a keyword which has been supported from ECMA 6. It is not from the ECMA 5 what we are discussing. So once I start the ECMA 6, I'm going to talk about the let keyword, the constant keyword, and some other keywords.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So we talked about the switch case is done. So after the switch case, variable hoisting also we are already done, right?
Yes.
And
Yes, sir.
so we have started data structures. No way. Why we
No,
start?
no.
No, as per the notes I'm saying. So after arrays, I would have gone for the global variables. If that is the case, functions. So JavaScript functions are there. Okay, before this, I have talked about the date object. Then I talked about the JavaScript functions. Okay, fine. Let me in JavaScript functions which we can define function under ECMA 5. Actually, it is not ECMA 6. Okay, so let me start the functions for you. Later, I will go with the data object, string methods, and the array data structure. So this is again, 1 second. Okay, so this is again another important concept in your JavaScript, guys. Okay, that time, and now we are going to start with the functions. It is a concept that until we finish with your JavaScript, we'll be keep on making use of the functions. So that much important and that much very frequently we'll be using these functions. Okay, so make sure everybody put extra attention and let me know if you have any questions on this. Okay, so I'll make it as JavaScript. Okay. Before that, before making use of a function, let me create a simple problem or simple program where we have some limitations, where we have some disadvantages with repeatancy. Then how do we solve with functions? I will show you. So let us say I have a very simple task, something called console.log. Say some hello everyone. Okay, I say console.log good evening all of you. Okay, so I simply said that some console messages and some good evening message. Okay, on the top, console.log, thanks for attending class. Okay, assume this is a piece of task for me. Okay, this is a piece of task. Now, if you save this guy, go back and execute the page here. Let's go into the inspect, go into the console. This is how I could able to see the execution is happening. Super fine. Now my next part is I would like to repeat this job for, say, for example, for 4 times. Okay, my expectation is the same job need to be repeated for 4 times. Now, if you save this guy, come back here and reload the page. Job is getting executed. But now my question is, do you think I have some problems in the code? What is the main problem you see within this code?
Code repetition.
Repetition of
Missing of memory.
Duplication. Duplication of the code is there. We need to avoid the duplication here. Now, can you give me a solution? How do I solve this without having the repetency?
For loop.
Awesome.
Loop
Not only for loop, any looping control structure. Any looping.
function using function.
So any looping control structure we can make use. Either we can go with the for loop or the while loop or the do while. Make use of any of the looping control structure, and you can simply add the piece of code only once. Then the job will be repeated for multiple times. Awesome. That's a good answer. But on the top, I have the requirement something like this. I say console.log. Some different job is getting executed. After this, console.log, there is another different job. Console.log, it's another one. Okay, so if you clearly observe this, I have my requirement. I have my requirement. This piece of code need to be executed. This is the job actual task. After that, there is another piece of job. Guys, if you are not talking, can you please go into mute? Okay, so I have this task getting executed. After that, I have some different job. Later, I have the same task getting repeated. Later, I have another different job. Again, I'm repeating the same job again. Now, can you tell me, can I solve this problem of repetency using the for loop in this case?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Agree, everyone?
Yes, sir. We use function.
Obviously, the thing what we have over here is when we go with the for loop or any of the looping control structure, looping control structures are capable of executing the set of instruction immediately. Execute it, immediately I want to repeat it, immediately I want to repeat it, immediately I want to repeat it. Okay, then you go with the looping control structure. But here in our case, it is not repetency immediately. There is a different job is coming in between. Isn't it? There is a different job in between. Now, how do I put the for loop? I cannot go with the for loop. Then what is the solution? This is where we have functions coming into the picture. Okay, so what do you mean by a function? A function is set of instructions. Okay, what do you mean by a function in case of your JavaScript? It is a piece of set of instructions. Whatever the set of instructions you have, you simply bind the instructions between the open and closed braces. Okay, these are set of JavaScript instructions binded between open and closed braces. Assign a name to it, user-defined name to it. I say something called display task, something like this. Assign a user-defined name. This is not predefined, user-defined name. Okay, and as it is a function, 2 things need to be followed. It has to end with open and closed braces. It has to start with a keyword called as function. This is what we call it as a function in JavaScript. Function is a predefined keyword following with the name of the function, which is user-defined, which ends with open and closed brace. Now you have the open and closed flower brace under which you are going to add the set of instructions, which we call it as a user-defined function. Am I clear with the definition? This is called as body of the function. You are defining you are telling what do you mean by a function? What is the job a function has to do? Now what I'm going to do is, this is the piece of job you're repeating. Yes, boss. take this guy, keep it inside a function. As I said to you, open and close braces, yes. Paste the set of instructions, yes. Okay, now do I need to assign a name for it? Yes.
Yes,
I
sir.
called a show user task. Open and end with the close braces, yes. And what else I'm missing here? Do I need to
Keyword,
start
function keyword.
function keyword? Simply put a function keyword, your function is ready. Anytime you're making use of a function name, make sure it should not start with a number, and make sure the function name should not have spaces. You cannot give something like this. It's an error. Okay. Function name should not have spaces in between. And as per the coding guideline, function name should always starts with a small letter. Subwords follows with the uppercase, which we call it as a camel case. Okay. So this is called as a function, and this is called as body of the function. You are giving what it has to do. Okay, this is called as body. Now the advantage what you have is, once you define a function, you can make use of the function any number of times by just simply calling the function name. It can be called any number of times just by using the function name. So how do we do that? We simply say, copy this guy. Okay. Whenever you want the function to get executed, simply put the name of the function. What is this? Name of the function. Copy the name of the function, simply paste it over here. And it has to open and close the brace with a semicolon. This is called as function calling. This is called as function definition. Okay, this is called as the function definition, and this is called as function calling. Definition means you are giving the body to it. Now calling means you want that guy to execute it. Now the advantage what you have is, once you define a function, any number of times it can be invoked within the application by just using the function name. When you're calling the function, you don't need to specify the keyword like function. Only when you're defining a function, that is where you use the keyword called as function. Now, if you save this guy, now if you come back here, reload the application, do I see the code is getting executed? Yes, super fine. Do you see the repeatancy of the piece of code? No, boss. As simple as it is. Okay, so in general, how the execution happens. Now I say console.log about to start. Okay, and I say console.log end. Okay, I have these two statements here. Now I want to debug this piece of code. So in general, how actually it goes is, whenever it comes to line number 1, before executing the piece of code, before executing the piece of instructions, JavaScript automatically understands that. It will automatically pick up all the function definitions. Okay, I have a function. Okay, I will take out this show user task as a function. Fine. The next thing is, whenever you invoke the line number 19, invoking a function, what happens from line number 19? It will automatically jump to the place where the function definition is there. Whenever you have line number 19, whenever you call a function, it will automatically jump to the place where the function definition is there. So it will jump from line number 19 to line number 13. It will execute the instructions. Once I'm done with this function, I will automatically come back to the next instruction after the function. I will execute line number 21. Again, there is a function call. From here, again, I will jump back to this guy, execute these instructions. I will come back to the place where I was being called from. Again, this way, the repeatancy is going to happen. Okay, let us see it practically also. Go to the source tab, go to this HTML file, go to, okay, it is not reloaded. Okay, now I'm putting a debugger point at line number 11. Okay, clearly observe this, guys. Now, when I'm reloading the page, you see in the console, there is nothing. Okay, go to the source tab. Now I say, go to the next step. It is going to line number 19. You tell me from line number 19 to where I need to jump now?
30,
To the line number
13.
13.
14, because there is a
14.
function.
Yeah, yes.
See here, is it not automatically jumping there? Executing the instructions after this line number 16, where actually I need to jump now? Once my function job is done, do I need to go back to the place where I was been called from? Yes, see, it is coming to line number 19 and coming to line number 21, the next job. After this, again, I have line number 23. Again, where I need to jump to?
14.
Again,
14.
14, where am I going?
14.
I'm executing these instructions. Again, jump back to
25.
25.
25.
25. Executing this. Again, from 27, where I need to jump to?
14.
14.
14.
So, any number of times you invoke a function, those many number of times I go there, I execute the instructions, and I come back to the place where I was being called from. This is how the flow of a function is going to happen. The one advantage what you have with the functions is you can actually bind the data as a module. Bind the data as a module. We can assign a name. Once you define a function, any number of times, anywhere within the application can be invoked. Okay. So yeah, any questions here within the function definition?
So
Go ahead, please.
can we call this function at line number 12 also, right?
Can we call? Yeah, that's a good question. So we can call the function at line number 12 also. Then the question what you will be having is how you can invoke this function before the function definition itself, because that is a normal function. There is another way of assigning a function to a variable also, which I will discuss later. There are three ways of defining a function using the function keyword. Second thing is function as a variable. And the third one is arrow functions. So in fact, in the recent JavaScript, we don't even have to go for this function keyword. We can simply make use of the arrow functions. But I will talk about them when I come to the ECMA 6. But for now, this is the function. It can be invoked anywhere you want it before even the definition of a function also. Okay, next.
Sir, can script be after body tag, sir?
Yes, it can be. Script can be placed anywhere within the code.
No, after body tag also we can place, sir.
Yes, we can. Next.
Sir, in debugging, the difference between the second option and the third option today you have shown, what is the difference, sir?
Which one? ma'am?
Arrow. We have second, after play, we have the another option step.
That's a very good observation, Pravalika. Very nice. I mean, you observed even which button I am doing it. That's nice. Okay, so what is her question is, was earlier, whenever you're debugging, I used to go for the first, second button. Just click on this. But today I was doing this guy, the third button. The difference between these two is, now if you see line number 13, I'm calling a function. What these guy will do is, it will simply ask, go to the next step. See here, after this line number 13, it is simply going for line number 21. It is not showing us to which function it is going. You want to go into the deeper of the function, how the instruction which is happening in the function, it doesn't show you. It simply says, next line, next line, next line. But the second guy, what it says, step into the function also. If it is a function, you go to the function also. I mean, show us. By default, this guy also go to the function, but it doesn't show to us. But if you click on this guy, see here, when I'm clicking on this, it is showing us, okay, I'm going inside. Okay, now see, for example, line number 25, when I'm calling the second button, see here, it is directly going to the next button. That's it. Got the difference, ma'am, Pravalika?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your, what do you say, observation. Good. Yeah, hope everyone is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Next, any other questions? Hope everyone is clear with the very simple, this topic, that nothing complex here, right? Simple.
Yes, sir.
And just making use of it. Okay. So the next example, what we have is, let us go with student details.html. We already created this student details.html, right? Awesome. Let me take this example, same example. So I would like to implement functions in student details example. Okay, in the student details example, I would like to implement functions. Now, the very next question, what you will be asking is, boss, here nothing we are repeating, right? Isn't it? We are not repeating any piece of code. Why the reason you're, I mean, what is the use that you're going to make use of the functions? The first use of the function is, yes, whenever you want to repeat the piece of code, you can call a function. Second use, what actually we have is, functions are always used to implement modularity. Functions always used to implement the modularity within the piece of code. Now, let us take this example where I'm having some name, gender, etc. things and all. We are calculating the total average. We are displaying the data to the user. At the same time, we are even calculating the grade system also. Okay, you are done with this piece of code. Someone come to you and say that, boss, when you're displaying the data, there is some issue, boss. Okay, whenever you're showing the data to the user, there is some issue. Then if at all they say that some issue or something need to be changed, what I need to do? Do I need to go to each and every line of piece of code and identify which line is responsible for displaying the wrong thing? Then you need to fix it. Yes or no? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, right now, boss, it is maximum of 50 lines or 50 lines of piece of code. It is fine. You can simply search it and you can get it. What if you have a requirement under which you have almost like, assume like thousands of lines of piece of code? Do you think it is easy for you to go to each and every line and identify which code is responsible for that? No, not at all. So this is where we go with the functions. What function says is, or what JavaScript says is, it is always recommended go with a modularized code. What do you mean by modularized? The set of instructions, whatever you're writing, relevant piece of code, make it as an individual module or individual function. Okay, let me show you. Let us say, for example, I go with one declaration here, where as name, comma, age, comma, gender, comma, M1, comma, M2, comma, M3, comma, total, comma, AVG. Okay, just I'm declaring all the variables at a time. Control H, where nothing. Yes. Okay, so now if you see, can I say that this is the piece of code responsible for reading the data from the user? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Can I make it as an individual module? Yes. What I'm doing, function keyword, read user info or data, whatever it is. See here, what is the format I'm following here? It is camel case. Now I simply put all of this inside a function. Isn't it simple? Nothing I'm doing much, just taking, this is a relevant piece of code capable of reading the data from the user. Okay, super fine. If you see these two, what are these two? If you see these two instruction 24 and 25, aren't we not responsible for calculating the total and average? Yes.
Yes.
I say calculate total and AVG. Anytime you are giving the function name, always make a habit of giving a self-descriptive name. Here I say ABC. I say something called as A. I say PQR. Yes, that also works. But what do you mean by PQR, boss? I don't have any extra meaning. But if you see here, is it not more self-descriptive here? Calculate total and average. By looking into the name itself, you should be able to understand what type of coding been added inside it. So make sure whenever you're giving the name, give it as a self-descriptive name. Doesn't matter, not only the function name, variable names also. Okay. Yeah. Now, this piece of code, is it not responsible for showing the data back to the user? Yes, boss. Now I say something called as a function, show data or show, show data to user. Something like this. Now, if you put these instructions inside this, save this guy, save this. Okay, show data to user. This is one of the function. Now I have another function. Okay. Can I put this guy into one function, something called as a function get grade? Can I do this? That's it. This is called as earlier code is a scattered data. Now it is modularized data. What is the difference, boss? Someone asked me, boss, there is an issue with the grade system calculation. What code I need to go for, boss? Do I need to go with line by line by line? No, go directly to the function which is responsible for calculating the grade. Am I not completely precise or am completely specific to the requirement what I wanted? Yes. Someone said that while reading the data, you're reading the wrong data. Directly go with the read user info. You only work with this function, not disturbing with any of the other functions. So this piece of code, we call it as a modularized coding. Here we are not repeating the piece of code. When you're not repeating the piece of code, doesn't mean that you don't go with the functions. Okay. Either you're repeating or not repeating, you can always go with the functions. From now, any of the program, whatever you're going to create, always make a habit of creating a functions, as simple as it is. Okay, be very much specific that anything, whatever you do, calculate a prime number, simply put a function called as get prime number. That's it. Write the logic inside it, call the function. Don't write the piece of code without any functions from now. Okay. And again, I'm telling you, it's very simple, nothing complex you need to understand. Syntax is also just put a function keyword, put the name, open close braces, just put the code. That's it. Your job is done. Now, if you save this guy, go with the browser execution, go with the inspection here, go with the console. Why I don't see any response here, boss?
We didn't call that function.
Are not calling the function. This is the first thing you need to understand. Anytime you define a function, function definition is not just enough. You need to invoke that function. You need to invoke that function in order to get the execution. Then only the execution will be happening. Okay. So how do you invoke the functions here? I simply call one by one functions here. I simply say read user info. After that, I say calculate total and average. So we need to make sure the order of invoking the function should be, if it mistakenly changes, any problem? Okay. So I say get grade, put the get grade here, simple. Now, if you save this guy, come back here, reload the page. See, read student details is getting invoked. I say Mr. Raj, age, say some 10, gender, say some male, subject 1, 90, 89, 99. See, I'm getting all the details. Output is not going to be changed, but the advantage is everything is in functions. So one thing what you need to make sure is you cannot change the order of the functions. Say, for example, initially I'm calculating total and average. So the problem is you reload the page, say I say some age, some 90, gender, male, subject. See here, total is coming as not a number, not a number. Why the reason? You're invoking the calculate total tax, but by the time the marks are not at red. So you need to make sure which one has to come in an order. We have to make sure. And another thing, inside a function, you can put any piece of code. You can put if conditions, you can put while loops, you can put a switch case, you can put a for loop, you can put another function also. You can invoke another function also. Anything can be kept. There is nothing like inside if you cannot do this, inside function you cannot do this. There is nothing like restrictions you have. You can put any piece of JavaScript code under this. Okay. Now, another thing what I'm saying is, boss, I mean, when I'm calling this, when I'm manually calling this, I may go with missing an order. So what I do is, I simply say show data to the user. I simply call show data to the user. Outside guy, he simply calls that show data to the user. So when I'm calling this show data to the user, you can internally call read user info. You can call a function over here. Okay. Later, you can call the calculate total and average. After these guys, or else calculate total and average, I will keep it inside. You can keep it anywhere. I'll keep it here. Now, after these guys done, I say get grade. So the advantage what you have is from outside, you only call show data to the user. What the show data to the user is going to do? It is first of all reading the user info. It is invoking these guys. Now I will come here. I will execute all this. Now he is calling calculate total. Now I go here, execute. Come back to this, come back to this. Again, I'll come back to these guys. Now, if you save this, again, the output is going to be the same. Mr. Raj, age is 90, gender is male, subject one so-and-so, so-and-so. I got the first class. This is how simple you can work with the functions, guys. So any questions on this? Come on. Do you see the advantage with the function? Did you understand the modularity of the code?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so functions is not only for the repeatancy. Earlier, I have shown the example of, when there is a repeatancy, how do you put the functions, but not only for the repeatancy. Anywhere you have any piece of code, doesn't matter single function, multiple function, whatever it is, just to create a function and write the piece of code, that's it. I ask you to calculate the Armstrong number. Function to get the Armstrong number, write the piece of code inside it. Everything should be part of the function, not outside of the function.
Sir,
Yes.
can you get a function to create other functions?
Yes, that's what I said, right? I mean, in a function, you can even say another function, say some sample, you can even do this. This is what we call it as inner functions.
Okay, what I meant to say was, okay, assuming to create the name called a sample that you have given here, can you invoke like refer to this particular table to create this particular function? I don't know if I'm being clear or not.
From outside, we cannot call this sample guy
Okay.
because sample is going to become a local variable. That is what I'm going to discuss the next topic. Anything which is declared inside a function, which becomes a local variable. That is what the next topic, as I said you, there is something called scope of variables. Maybe once I say scope of variables, you'll get to understand better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Next.
Using a parent method, we can call that child method outside.
No. Functions cannot refer to another functions. Not even using the function names. Only objects it is possible. Through objects, you can invoke function, which is a part of an object already. Functions cannot point to another functions. You cannot say read user info dot sample. No, that doesn't. Am I clear?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Next. Any more questions?
Sir, why did you change the function calling places?
Why do we change the
Why did you change that function calling place?
I mean, it is easy from the outside, right? Now, if you see from the outside, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, you're calling, there is a chance that people will place the order of the functions. And that doesn't look good that, okay, how many functions you're calling? Say, for example, there are 10 functions, 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of invoking them from outside, it simply show data to the user. User will go with step by step, step by step. Okay, what actually show data to the user is going? It will go into that function. Internally, it is calling the read. So it's up to you. If you say that, no, boss, I'm fine, we can keep it to 1, 2, 3, 4 after that. Yeah, we can even do that. It's not mandatory. But this is good way of coding. Am I clear?
Okay.
Next. Come on, guys. Be fast. Any questions?
Sir, can we use a return statement inside function?
What is return function, Mona? What is return, Mona?
A return is a one type of statement which used to return some data.
It's in C or Java.
That is good. I mean, you already know the return, then I don't need to discuss here. Anyway, Mona, I mean, that's not that added. First of all, let me discuss the concept of a local variable and global variable concept. Now, it is a concept of how to access the private data of a function outside of the function. That is where the next concepts we have something called passing parameters and returning value. At that time, I give you
Okay,
more.
okay. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah, thanks, ma'am. Next. Come on. That's it.
Sir, one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Gagan.
If we put a delay on where we are calling, so will it gonna invoke after the delay, or will it keep going down?
No. Whenever you put a timeout, I mean, you're talking about the timeout, right? Set timeout. If we
Yeah.
put a delay of set timeout, it doesn't go for the next step. And that too, when I say delay, that set of instruction. Now, when I say, okay, boss, okay. Now, when I say, anyway, I haven't discussed about the timeout and interval. I will talk about this. But for now, just for answer your question, I'm telling you, JavaScript is asynchronous. Okay, JavaScript is asynchronous piece of code. Implies, say for example, I added a delay for line number 5 and 6 of 5 seconds of time. I will execute 1, I will execute 2, I will execute 3. I won't execute 5 and 6. I will directly go with 8, 9, 10. After 5 seconds, I will come and execute 5 and 6 because it is asynchronous. Asynchronous in the sense, we never wait for the response. We keep executing the things. When I say synchronous, synchronous means you need to wait. I execute 3, I come to 5 and 6, wait for 5 seconds, execute 5 and 6, then I will come to 8, 9. That is called as synchronous. By default, JavaScript is asynchronous.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, like I will show you the practical example of timeout and interval methods going forward. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So the next topic, what we have is there is a concept of local, or we can say variable scope. Okay. So what do you mean by variable scope? The scope method, scope keyword, not the keyword actually, the scope word indicates that accessibility level of a variable. Okay. So let me talk about this. Come on. Okay. Now I say variable scope. Where, okay, I say where a is equal to 90. Okay, I say a function, say some display data. I say where p is equal to 99. Can I say console.log value of a is plus a, or else let me remove this guy. I say console.log value of a is plus a. Do you expect any errors here?
No error.
I mean, just declaring the variable and making use of it. Now, if you execute this guy, go to inspect, go for the console. You see value of a is 90. Okay, super fine. Now, can I say a value within this function, inside the function? Can I access the value of a value? Let us see whether it's happening or not. Come back here, reload the page. Should I be able to access it? Yes. So the variable, what you declare outside of any of the module, we call it as global scope. Implies it is a public variable. So what is the mean by global scope? The accessibility level of this variable is throughout the application. Wherever you wanted, you can simply make use of the variable A. But when you say variable B, okay, let us try to execute this variable B here. I say value of B is B. Save this guy, reload the page. Could I able to access the value of B inside the function? Yes, boss. Okay. Now, can I try to access B value here, or even after function also, not necessary, anywhere. What is happening? Okay. Now, if you come back and reload the page, what it is saying? It is saying that at line number 22, B is not defined. Boss, B is defined, right? I have already declared a variable called as B. But why it is not defined? Any data what you declare within the open and closed variable, closed function, or within the closed block, that data becomes the private data or local data of the particular function. The B can be accessed only within the function. It cannot be accessible outside. So the scope of variable A is global. The scope of variable B is private or local. And once I say var B, now you tell me the scope of B is global or local?
Global.
Global.
It is doesn't matter where you are declaring, sorry, where you are initializing. It only matters is where you are declaring.
Declaration.
Okay, the declaration is at line number 14, which is outside of the function. Then it automatically becomes a global variable. So this is what we call it as local variable and global variable. There is another scope which is called as module scope or block scope. Sorry, this is the module scope. There is another thing called as module scope. That is where, Raj was asking there, right? What about the let keyword? That is where we will be using the let keyword. Anyway, I'll talk about that when I come to the ECMA 6. For now, two scopes we learned, which is your local scope and the global scope. Any questions here? Anyone? Okay, nice. Now, the next part.
After display data console.log, the value of B will be 99, sir.
Obviously, right? Now, if you see here, it will be 99 because it is a global variable.
Okay, sir.
Okay, yeah. Now, let us create another example on this.
Sir, do we have something like protected or something like how we have in C and C++? Sorry, C++.
Okay, so Surya, those are called as access specifiers, which we have public, private, protected.
Yes, sir.
Those access specifiers can be only used in the classes, not outside of the classes. Right now, we are not talking of the classes, and forget about the classes also. In JavaScript, we don't have the concept of access specifiers.
Okay,
In
sir.
TypeScript, we have the concept of access specifiers, public, private, protected. But in JavaScript, we don't have it. The place where you declare itself will tell you whether it is private or protected or public. That's it. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So let me create
sir,
a...
sorry, sir, I had one more doubt. Actually, yesterday while programming for the reverse number, sir, when we declare parsin, sir.
Can we declare parsin? Sorry.
No, sir. I declared parsin outside the loop. N is equal to parsin outside the loop. But again, inside, like the code didn't run properly. But when I declared it inside the loop, then the code was executing properly. So could you tell the reason why?
Okay. Have you submitted the code already in the Git?
I'm about to submit now.
Yeah, maybe after you submit it, then I can check it and let you know.
Okay, sir, I have a question, sir. So, like for example, if I put var sunny equal to 99 and I put the same value var sunny equal to 99 within the function, so which will get executed, sir?
That's a very good question, Saurabh. Nice. Let us see this. Now I say var a is equal to 99. Okay. Now I say a function, say some sample data. Okay. Now you say var a is equal to 100. Okay. Now, or else forget about this. I say console.log value of a inside is plus a. Can you tell me what is the line? What is the value of line A at line number 20?
99.
99.
What is the value of A at line number 16?
99.
Okay, open within the default browser, go with the inspect, go with the console. This is how it is saying 99 and 99. Super fine. Now I say var A is equal to 100. Guys, if you are not talking, please go into mute. Okay, now I say var A equal to 100. Now can you tell me what is the value of A at line number 21?
99.
What is the value of A at line number 17?
100.
100.
Simple as it is. Whenever you access any value within the function, what it will check is, it will check for, do I have any variable of value A? Now say, for example, assume if you don't have it. Whenever you're trying to access, first of all, what it checks is, do I have any local variable with the variable name A? Do I have? No. Do I have any global variable with variable name A? Do I have? What if it is no? Then it will simply throw an error. If it is having, then it will simply show the value. Now, again, line number 17. Do I have a value called as variable A local? Yes. If I have it, first of all, I'll give the priority to the local variable. I don't go even with the global variable. Am I clear, Saurabh, how it is working?
Yes, sir, I got it, sir. So if you didn't put a var A in function within the function, then it will throw error, or yeah, it will show the value of var A 99, right?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, sir, I got it.
Yeah. Okay. So the next point what we have is, let me take a very simple example. As I said, you guys, from now everything whatever you write is functions. Now the assignment what you guys have is employee details in the form of functions. Okay, the same way what I have done in the student details. Write a function for reading the employee details. Write a function to calculate the PF and HRA. Write a function to calculate the total salary. Write a function to calculate the total tax. Okay, can you guys try that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have a very simple example where P1 is equal to a prompt, enter a value. P1 is equal to parse int of P1, convert that guy, store into the same guy. P2 is this, enter second value. Okay, now I say var result is equal to P1 plus P2 console dot log, the sum is plus result. A very simple example we have written, capable of reading two values from the user, 90 and 34, and you should able to see the response 124 here. Okay, good. As I said you, is it is modularized code? No, because it is not using functions. Let's keep it as a modularized. I'll put a function, something called as read values. Okay, a function responsible for reading the data. I will put another function, get total or get sum, I'll say. Like this. Okay, simple. Now what I do from outside, I simply call read values. This is tricky, guys. Please put some extra attention. Internally, I'm going to call the get sum. Simple, yes or no? Now, if you save this guy, I simply call this guy. Now it is modularized, super fine. This is what recommended. Now, if I reload the page, asking for the first value, 56, say some 44. Oh, okay, now I give 56. What is the problem we see? At line number 22, it is saying that P1 is not declared. Can you tell me what could be the reason?
Local.
Just the
Function.
P1 and P2 are local variables
P2
of
has
function
declared.
read values. They
Awesome.
should be
That's
declared
great.
as global
Function.
variables.
So P1 and P2 are the local variables of the function read values. Those cannot be accessible outside. One solution, what you have is, you need to declare them where P1, where P2. Now you don't declare them here. Now you make use of it, come back and reload the page. Enter the first value, 34, 56. Now you see the sum, super fine. But the very first rule being a developer is never declare the global variables. Try to avoid the global variables. Why, boss? What is the problem? There is a code leakage problem. The problem is, once you declare the variable as a global, not only these two variables, these two methods, some third-party person methods are coming. Anyone who can execute the code within your container, they could able to access the data. Where is the security? When you keep the data within the function, that is where you have the data security. You cannot access the data outside of the function. No one else can make use of it. But the problem over here is, even I myself, I'm calling the function called as getsum. Even that guy also cannot be used. He also can't use it, right? Then what is the solution? Mandatory is keep the variables global. But what is the way to access the P1 data and P2 data into the 21 line number, into the function? Okay, before that, first of all, can I call this as a function definition? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, can I call this as function calling?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
This function is called as calling function. This function is called as called function. Why it is called as calling function? Because he is calling a function called as getsum. Why it is called as called function? Because I was being called by someone. Got it? This is a calling function. This is a called function. He is calling the function called as get function. That is the reason I am called as calling function. This function is getting called by someone. That is the reason it called it as called function. Okay. Now, one concept what we have. Line number, when I'm giving this execution, can you tell me what line gets executed when I give this piece of code for execution? Obviously, line number 26.
Yes, sir.
Yes. From 26, where it will jump to line number 14?
Yes.
I go to 14, I go to 15, I go to 16, I go to 17. When I'm coming to 18, can you tell me where I need to jump from 18 to?
22.
22.
22.
Actually 21. Now, in general, whenever you are calling a function, when the function is jumping from the calling to the definition of a function, you have an option of passing some parameters. Whenever you're passing some values to the function, whenever you're calling a function, you can actually pass some values to that function. What are those values? I can say some 20, 45. Any values you want, you can pass. Any number of values you can pass, just a comma separated, any data type. Now, whenever you do this guy, what happens when it is jumping to the function definition, you can create some temporary variables, some a comma b, anything you can say. Now, the value of 20 will be into the a, the value of 45 will be into the b. So one thing what you need to understand is, whenever I'm calling a function from here to here, when it is jumping, it is capable of carrying some data. Now, instead of 20 and 45, can I simply say P1 and P2? Implies when I'm going off here indirectly, if you give P1 and 20, you know what happens? Indirectly, get sum of 20, 40. Guys, just give me a second. Yes, sorry guys. Yeah, so indirectly it is like this. If you give P1 value as 20, if you give P2 value as 43, when you say get sum of P1 comma P2, indirectly get sum of 20 and 43 will come. Now indirectly A value will be 20 and B value will be 43. Now instead of calculating P1 plus P2, if I say A plus B, is it not indirectly instead of A comma B, let us say something called as first value comma second value. Now instead of this A plus B, can I say first value plus second value? Yes or no, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Everyone, indirectly we are throwing some data to this function. Now if you save this guy, come back here, reload the page, enter the first value 45, second value 67. I'm finding the sum. Do you see any type of global variable, boss? No.
No.
Way of accessing private data of one function into another function is called passing parameters. What do you mean by parameter? Anytime you see any values while calling a function between the open and closed brace, we call it as a parameters. You can pass any number of parameters where each parameter should be a comma separated. Can you tell me prompt method is taking parameter or not?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is a method. Under this we are passing parameters. We are taking one parameter. Same way. Parameter. So anytime any function is capable, anytime every function is capable of taking parameters. Okay. So any value, whatever you pass within the function call, we call it as a parameters. And whatever the values you pass, that will be catched at the time of function definition. So the values what you are passing, P1, comma P2 are actual parameters. Whereas first value and second value are called formal parameters. Okay, these are called as actual parameters because actual values, right, we are passing. These are called formal parameters, the temporary variables. So any questions still here, guys? Come on.
Sir, can we define a data type for the parameters?
In JavaScript, have a concept of data types? No, right? We don't
like
need to declare the variable also. You don't even need to say where. No, not needed. By default, JavaScript will declare the variables. At least for the function variable. Okay? I mean, function parameter.
Sir, in C language, like we save a file about the readings of some variables. For example, funcs.h. So like we save it and we use it like to do the problem. We use like using like funcs.h so that it will go to that page. So like we don't need to redo the same things. Like, are you getting my point, sir? Yeah.
So the concept of yours is you want to create.
Can we do that in JavaScript? I mean,
in case of your C language, you want to create a separate header file with a .h extension. Under this, you will define multiple functions. Now, in any of the C language or any of the C programming language, what you're going to do, you simply hash include whatever the file you set the header file. Now you include you can invoke the function wherever you want it.
yes, sir. Right.
Possible in case of your JavaScript. That's what your question is, right?
Yes, sir.
Not only in JavaScript, any programming language, it happens. The only difference is in case of C language, we call it as a header files. In case of JavaScript, we call it as a external JavaScript libraries. I will come to that situation later, but it is possible for now.
Thanks.
Next.
Sir, could you please repeat the parameters?
Okay. Parameters is the indirect way of accessing the local variables of the calling function into the called function. Here I have var p1 comma p2 Is these are global variables or local variables?
Local.
variable.
Local variable.
I want an option to access these local variables into the called function. How do I do that? While you are calling a function, you can simply pass the parameters. Open and close brace. Under that, whatever you're passing, those are called as parameters. You can pass any number of parameters with a comma separated. So whenever you pass these parameters indirectly, it is not taking P1, P2, it is taking value inside P1 and P2. That is what, if we give this indirectly, this is how it is going. If you give P1 as 20, if you give P2 as 43, it will call get some 20, 43, where 20 will be copied into the first parameter, 43 will be copied into the second parameter. Now, if you have the values, if you do the sum of first value and second value, is it not indirectly sum of P1 and P2? Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Am I clear?
If you pass 3 parameters and receive only 2, it will throw error or no?
Okay, so that's a good question. In JavaScript, you pass any number, you say 30, 45, but you are catching only 2. JavaScript never ever bothers about the number of parameters. You say 45, you say do this. It's working still. It will be simply gone. It's in the air. For now, too much complexity, but for now, just simply understand this point. But anyway, to answer your question, it is possible. I mean, it is not going to throw any error. Okay. Next.
So just a small dot. We can use P1 and P2 parameters here also. So why to declare first value and second value? Because here P1 and P2 are local variables for read values. And again, we can also write here P1 and P2 because in GetSum.
It is possible. The only reason why I go with the separate variable is so that you won't get confused. You can even do this. You can say P1, you can say P2, it's up to you. Just to not to confuse, see, I'm using the different variables. Got it?
Is it works once can you check?
Output?
Yeah, P1 and P2.
Yeah, if P1 comma second value is working, obviously P1 comma P2 also will work, right?
Yeah, yes. Got it.
Now, P2. Now, if you save this guy, reload the page, 34. The only reason why I gave it a different variable is just so that people might confuse that what is this P1, P2, it's separate variables or not. Okay. So that is the reason. First parameter, I'll keep it as P1, second value as second value. So here, this P1 is completely different and this P1 is different. This is a variable of getSum. This is a variable of read values. That is the reason. If you see here, when I'm doing this, it is turning into this guy. So there is no concept of P1, P2. There is a concept of passing by value. GetSum of 21, 43. Now 20 is passed into another P1 variable. 43 is passed into the second value. So you can put P1, P2 or first value, second value, A, comma B, whatever you want, you can make use. Both formal and actual parameters can have the same name. Am I clear, Bharat?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir. In line number 19, call function, if I by mistakenly in P1 or P2 or in string, it will be work or not, sir?
No, it doesn't work, right? Now, if you give P1 as a string, now your work is gone. It will be P1
yes.
second value, P1 plus, now if you see the result, gone, right? 34 and 45. Now, if it is P1, 55 is coming because exactly it is coming as like this, P1. So it's not the value inside the P1. It is taking P1.
Yeah, shows only P1.
Sir, can we declare read value function calling at the after line number 12?
After line number 12, yes, you can do that. You can place the call anywhere you want it. Yes, ma'am, you can do that.
For function, is it loading the memory at the runtime or compile time?
At the time of runtime only, when you execute the code, the first thing what JavaScript does is it will find out what all the functions you have in your application. I will define the function, then I will start executing. So before executing the line number 13, JavaScript already knows that what do you mean by read values, what do you mean by getSum method. That is the reason I could able to understand where is read value. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you there is another way of declaring a function, which is called as variable declaration. So tomorrow, just remind me, guys, the different ways of declaring a function. So at the time, you'll understand the second way. In that second way, it is not possible to declare the variables, invoke the function before the definition. Okay.
Sir, another question. Line number 23, get sum. This function can be completely put under the read value function?
Why the reason you want to put it? If it is inside, if you are putting inside that function, then it can directly make use of the P1 and P2, right? It is possible. You say that, no, boss, I will take out this guy and I will replace this with this guy. Now, in that case, why the reason you will pass a function then? You don't need to call that, right? I mean, you will be calling this get sum. Now, can I directly make use of the P1 and P2 instead of passing parameters? Yes or no? Because this function is already part of this function. Whatever these variables are there, I can make use of this here also, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Next. Okay, hope everyone is so clear until here. Functions. Okay, so there is next concept of returning a value from the function. You want to continue?
No, sir.
No,
sir.
sir. Continue.
No, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Continue.
Yes, sir.
How much time it will take, sir?
Enough, sir.
Okay, it's not overloading, right?
No,
That
sir.
Okay, sir. It's okay, sir. Nothing yet.
Okay, fine then. Let me just. Okay, so the next concept is, this is a very, guys, if you're not talking, please go into mute.
Sir, morning, are you taking the classes?
Morning, am I taking the classes? Yes, I'm taking. Why so? Why, Anteshwar? I didn't get your answer. Okay, so the next thing is, the next concept is returning values from function. Okay, now I say read values. Okay, I'm going to, okay, I say var P1 comma P2. I want to declare them as a global variables. If those are global variables, I don't need to pass them. Okay, I say console.log, done. Okay. Now I save this guy, execute this guy, open inside the default browser, 4455. Inspect this guy, go with the console. You see, sum is not a number. Why so? Here we are still calling this P1 and sum. Instead of this, we can simply say P1 plus P2. Save this guy, come back and reload the page. Now, if we say enter the first value, 34, 67, sum is so and so. Clear, everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the next concept is what? Okay, yeah. So I have declared the P1 and P2 as a global variable, then it is working super good. Now I do like this, result equal to 0, result equal to P1 plus P2. We know that anytime I'm calling this function line number 27, what happens? I will go to this line number 15, 16, 17. When it is 19, I'll come here, I will execute this. After this 25, again go back to the place where I have called from. Agree, everyone?
Yes, sir.
I will jump to the definition. Once the definition got executed, I will come back to the same place where I was been called from. Okay. Now, my requirement is I want to show the result in this method, read values. Now, if you save this guy, come back here and reload the page. I say 55, I say 66. What is the error which it is throwing? It is saying that there is no variable called as result here. Why the reason?
Next, second function.
It is declared
the
in get
variable
Because
for get
result
variable.
is a local variable and get some
Local variable.
Get some.
Now,
global
can we-
variable.
Is it is possible to access through the parameters? No. Why so?
We have to need return.
Parameters, when we are calling someone, if you want to pass some data, okay, you go with parameters. But you are calling someone, from there you want something back. You are calling get some method. From there, you would like to make use of a variable called as result. Then how do you do that? That is where you have a predefined keyword in every function. You know, I said that every function, once you call this function, it will come here. Once I'm done with this, I will go back to the same place. Why so? Every function is going to have a predefined keyword, something called as return. Return is a predefined keyword. Anytime the controller reaches to it, it will automatically returns the controller back to the place where it has come from. Return is a predefined keyword in JavaScript, which returns the controller back to the place where it is being called from. Okay. By default, every function is going to have it. But along with this return keyword, you can even pass on some variables or values. Now, when I say return result, you know, internally what happens? It is return, assume like it is 23 is the response. Now return 23 will be gone. Now, whenever you are returning 23, this function need to catch that guy. I say where res is equal to get some. Now, instead of result, you simply say res, my job is done. Save this guy, come back here. Let us see this. When I'm executing this, first value, second value, could I able to show the 100 response or the result from this guy itself? Boss, result variable is a local variable. How I could able to access that guy? Using the return keyword. Using the return keyword, you can only return a single value. By passing parameter, you can pass any number of parameter with comma separated, but using returning a value, you can only return a single value. If your question is, then what if like I want to return multiple, then you have a concept of arrays and objects and all that we'll talk about later. For now, return is capable of returning a single value. Whenever it returns a value, that will be automatically thrown to this guy and you need to catch it. And whatever the value, when I say return 23, res will be automatically, you know, internally this is res is equal to 23, which is going to happen because this guy is coming with 23 as a response.
So before this, you just had get some, right? Instead of ban res, you just wrote get some.
Yes, when I say get some, it is getting called. But if you are not catching something, then it is gone, right? We are not holding it. So that is the reason we should be able to catch it. If someone is returning, you need to catch it. If you don't catch it, that variable is gone. Any questions?
So can't we use the same variable, sir? Because since it is local here inside get some.
Just to not to confuse, I'm using guys. But if you want to use, you can simply use. That's it.
Okay, sir.
Not to confuse, I'm using a different variable. Next.
Can we directly give P1 plus P2 in return?
But P1 and P2, he cannot. Yeah, you can do that. If you simply say P1 plus P2, yes, you can do that. Anyway, it will be return 23 or return, say, for example, 20 plus 34 it will be. So it will be finding the sum and it will give you the return. That is also possible. Okay. Next. Clear, everyone? So
Yes,
this
sir.
is how you could able to access the local data of a calling function to the called function and called function to the calling function also. Okay. Now I want to go with another example. I save it as function with params and returning values.html. Okay. Now what I will say, I don't want to declare the P1, P2 also local, no global variables. Okay. Now If at all I need to access the P1 and P2, what I can say? I can simply catch this P1 and P2. Now can I simply call this P1 and P2 over here? Yes. Now if you save this, open inside the browser, enter the value 3355, inspect this guy, go to the console, sum is 88. Now in an example, you can make use of passing parameters and returning values also. It's up to you. So this is how you indirectly make use of the data of one function into another function. Any questions on this example, guys? No questions?
No question, sir.
So another assignment what you have is, whatever the student details we have done, can you try with both returning value and parameters? Student details with both returning value and parameters. Try for that. If it is not coming, tomorrow I'm going to explain that. But
Yes, sir.
you practice on this
Sir, I
parameters.
missed a few HTML, CSS classes, sir. Can I join morning?
I'm not sure, Antishwar. You need to contact management on this.
What's the timing, sir?
7 a.m.
Yes, sir.
7 a.m.
11 a.m., sir.
7 a.m.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so guys, please do the enough practice on this function parameters and returning value. This is very, very, very important. Okay, so that is whatever the student details we have done with the functions. If you see, we declared all of them as global variable. Now you remove all the global variables. Now you see how do you pass parameters, how do you return values. So try it out and let me know tomorrow. And remind me, if possible, I will show the same example of student details with both passing parameter and returning value also. Okay. Okay, sir. Any more questions? Okay, sir.
Yes,
Fine,
sir.
guys. If you don't have any questions, we'll meet again back on tomorrow. Have a good day.